Hello and welcome to Peaky Boardgamer. My name is Galapagos and today I will teach you Darwin's Journey, produced by Thundergriff Games, designed by one of my favorites, Simone Luciani and Nestore Mangone. The game is for up to 4 players, also has a solo mode and takes about 2 hours to finish. I will now start with a quick overview and then we continue with the rules of the game. In the game, players recall Charles Darwin's memories of his adventures through the Galapagos Islands. Players place their workers on specific worker locations to activate bonuses and perform actions. Some of these locations will be activated and available as the game progresses. Using a worker building mechanism, players will be equipping their workers with wax seals to make them more efficient and capable of performing more advanced actions. With navigation actions, players will be advancing their ship in the oceans in order to reach more distant islands and deploy their explorers. With exploration actions, players will be moving their explorers on the islands in order to investigate specimens, create encampments, return these specimens to the museum, accomplish objectives on tiles and on their crew cards, and of course, being Darwin, you will develop the evolution theory. In the end, the game proceeds to final scoring and the player with the most victory points will win in Darwin's Journey. At first, place the board in the middle of the table. Use the correct side of the board according to your player count and also according to this illustration. I'm gonna set up for a 2-player game, so that's the applicable side. Shuffle the special action tiles and randomly place 6 of them facing upwards in this area of the board. Remaining tiles will not be used. Then take the 2 neutral lens tokens and place them in the top tile of each column. This is also indicated in the board illustration. Then shuffle the correspondence tiles and place a random tile onto each one of these 3 spaces on the board. The remaining tiles will not be used. Take the objective tiles and separate them to 2 face-down stacks, 1 golden and 1 silver. Then find and separate the starting objective tokens. Starting objective tokens have all 4 corners painted, while normal tiles have only 2. Set aside the starting objective tokens, these will be used later. Then place the 2 stacks in the corresponding space on the board and then reveal the top 2 tiles from each stack and place them here. Then shuffle the Beagle Gold tokens and randomly place 5 of them in the Beagle Gold token spaces on the board. The remaining tiles will not be used. Take all the seal tokens and separate them according to their color. Purple seals are special seals and are all placed on this plate on the board. Then, from the regular types, remove 2 seals per color if in a 2-players game, or 1 seal per color if this is a 3-players game. After you exclude seals, if applicable, unify all remaining seals in a single face-down pile and shuffle them. Then use this pile to randomly fill the 12 seal spaces of this area. Place the seals facing upwards. Take the 16 museum tiles and with them replicate the museum template found on the board. Then take 4 coins and place them in these circular spaces in the right side of the museum. Next, shuffle the specimen tiles and randomly place 1 of them to each one of these large circular spaces depicting a flag. Make note that some of the spaces will only be covered in a 3 or a 4-players game and some others only in a 4-players game. In my 2-players example, I will only place tiles in spaces not depicting these signs. If this is not a 4-player game, some specimen tokens will remain. Before placing them back in the box, find the corresponding museum tiles and move them to their corresponding spaces on the museum. Create a supply of coins, research tokens and temporary knowledge tokens next to the board. Each player then selects one of the colors and takes the personal board and the components of the corresponding color. Each player has 4 player cube markers. Players will place one of their cubes in the starting space of the scoring track. This will be their scoring marker. Another marker on this large book, which is the starting space of the theory of evolution track. This will be the player's evolution marker. and then randomly determine a player turn order and place these markers in the player turn order track from left to right. If this is a solo or a two players game, use this token and place it here covering this space. Players have one ship which is placed in the leftmost space of the ocean track, and then you will also place the HMS Beagle token on the leftmost Beagle space location on the ocean track. Players have 3 explorers and you will only use one of them, placing it on the explorer space of the leftmost island only. Players have 5 workers, you leave one of them at the side of your board, and the remaining workers are placed on these 4 spaces. Players have 5 tents which are placed here, 12 stamp tokens which you must divide in 3 equal stacks, and then place these stacks in these 3 spaces on your personal board. Players have 6 personal lens tokens, and they receive 4 coins and a temporary knowledge token from the supply. Players start the game with 3 crew cards using a drafting mechanism. At first, all players will be dealt 4 cards from this deck. After players examine their cards, they will select 1 to keep and they will pass the other 3 to the player to their left. They will receive 3 cards from the player to their right, they will examine the cards, select another card to keep and will pass the rest 2 to the player to their left. This is done for a 3rd time, and when players have 3 cards each, they return all remaining cards to the box, and they will place the cards they selected next to their personal display facing upwards. Players then take the seals depicted in the top right corner of their selected cards from the general supply, and they will place these seals to the right of their 2nd, 3rd and 4th worker. Next, use the starting objective tiles you separated earlier and create pairs of silver and golden tiles equal to the number of players in the game. Then, using reverse player turn order, players will select one of the pairs. So the yellow player will select first, and the green player will have to take the remaining pair. All remaining starting objective tiles are returned to the box. Players will place the personal objective tiles they selected right next to their personal display. The game is now ready to start. At this point, I would like to remind you that if you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, please consider subscribing. Also hit that bell button. It will help our channel and also make sure that you'll never miss any of our future videos. The game is played in 5 rounds. Each round consists of the following 4 phases: the action phase, the turn order phase, the reward, and the cleanup phase. The main phase of the round is the actions phase. Here, players alternate turns using this player turn order, and on their turn, players use one of their workers on one of the action spaces and perform actions. When all players have played all of their workers, then that's the end of the actions phase. So on your turn, you place one of your workers on a worker space, and then you trigger all actions of that space, which usually are indicated by these circular illustrations. In this example, I would trigger both of these actions, and I can do it in any order. While performing these actions, it is possible that you trigger more actions. Before explaining all of the different actions in the game, I would like to orientate you with the different worker spaces. Worker placement locations are found in the top half of the main board and are the ones that I show you in the graphics. These are separated to 2 types. There are magnifying glass spaces indicated with a blue color that can accommodate any number of workers from any player, even the same one. Then we have lens spaces indicated here with a purple color that can accommodate only one worker. Lens spaces, however, require a lens to be activated, and it is only then that they can be used. So, at the beginning of the game, the only applicable lens spaces are the ones with a pre-printed lens or a neutral lens. As the game progresses, players will be activating more such spaces with their lenses so that they can be used in the future. Now, this game has 2 worker placement main aspects that I want to explain. The board depicts 4 books containing actions, 3 large ones and a smaller one. The other side of the board, applicable to 4 players, illustrate red dividers that split each book in 2 sections. In this side of the board, however, we have no such dividers, so every book is 1 section. The reason I'm saying this is that whenever you place a worker in a section and that section already contains another worker of any player, then you must pay a penalty in coins to the general supply. The penalty is 2 coins if this is a 3 or a 4 player game, and 3 coins if it's a 2 players game. So with this placement, the yellow player would have to spend 3 coins to the supply in order to proceed with the actions. Otherwise, they cannot place the worker there. You avoid this penalty only if you place the first worker in the section. Now, lens spaces can be used by any player. However, when you use a lens of another player, the owner of the lens gains 1 coin from the supply. Also, all large book worker spaces have a seal cost depicted. For example, to place a worker here there is a blue seal requirement, this space has 2 yellow seal requirements, and this one has 2 blue and also 2 red seal requirements. These seals are required by the specific worker you will use from your personal board. Every worker has a row meant for seals. Your first worker has 1 purple seal that can cover the cost of 1 seal of any color. All the other workers start with 1 seal of a basic color, but more seals can be added to their rows during the game. Important, you never spend these seals. You simply need to have them with your worker when you perform this action. If you do not have all the required seals, you can always use 1 or more of your temporary knowledge tokens, which are 1-use tokens, and they will cover you the cost of any 1 seal you're lacking. So, if I want to perform an action that requires 2 yellow seals, I could use any one of these 3 workers and also spend 1 token. Or if I have 2 such tokens, I could also use this worker. Now it's time to start explaining the various actions. I will start by explaining this action, with which you place 1 of your lenses onto an inactive lens location, thus activating it. There is no seal requirement for this action. The only cost is the cost in coins depicted on the space covered by your lens. So now the yellow player would have to spend 6 coins. This book contains special lens locations and can be activated in any order. The other book locations, however, must be activated in order from top to bottom. Now, after activating a new lens location, you get to perform all of its corresponding actions without placing a worker and thus without caring about the seal requirements. The player will perform exploration and navigation, which are 2 of the most basic actions, and I will now explain them. The top 2 books relate to the 4 basic actions. With exploration, you get to move your explorers on the islands. With navigation, you move your ship, reaching more distant islands for your explorers to explore. With a correspondence action, players place their stamps onto this area, gaining immediate bonuses and other bonuses that will apply in the reward phase. With the Academy action, players gain more seals from this area to make their workers more capable of being placed in specific locations. And just because of that, I will analyze this action first. The action requires 1 red seal, and then the player takes any available seal from this area. Depending on the row of the selection, the player might have to spend an additional cost in coins. The more advanced version of this action, requiring a lens of course, requires 2 red seals, and then the player takes 2 of these seals, receiving a discount of 1 coin for 1 of the 2 purchases. With this location, the player again takes 2 seals, receiving a discount of 3 in 1 of the 2 purchases. All new seals are then placed on the leftmost seal space of 1 or more of your workers. Whenever you cover a coin illustration depicting a red number, you must also spend these coins to the general supply. Also, each time you place a seal in the 4th column, the corresponding worker gains the silver distinction.
I will talk about distinctions later. For every seal you place on the 5th column, you will gain 3 victory points at the end of the game. For every seal you place on the 6th column, you will gain 7 victory points at the end of the game, and the corresponding worker also gains the golden distinction.
Next we have the navigation action. With this action you gain ship movements on the ocean track. The initial action grants you 2 moves, this one grants 3, and with this action you gain 4 moves. When using these ship moves,
you follow the arrows depicted on the ocean track.
If the ship ends movement on a space depicting a bonus or an action, then these immediately take effect. These space actions, however, are only applicable for the neutral Beagle ship. I will not explain these actions and bonuses yet. What is important for now is that
each space on the ocean track
can accommodate any number of ships
and/or the neutral Beagle ship.
Another important feature of these tracks are these banners. As soon as you pass these banners with your ship, you immediately place one of your available explorers on the starting space of the next island. The same will happen as soon as you pass the second banner. Finally, the first player reaching the end of the ocean track will receive 3 victory points as a bonus. Similarly to navigation, with the exploration action, you gain moves for your explorers on the islands. The basic action grants 2, this action grants 3, and this action grants 4 moves. All gained moves of every single exploration action must be applied to one of your explorers in case you have deployed multiple. Similarly to the ocean track, every island has a track and you move your explorer following the arrows on the path. Again, the first player that reaches the end point gains 3 victory points as a bonus. Also, there are golden banners scattered across the path, and only the first player crossing them gains the victory points depicted on them. The difference with the ocean track is that there can never be more than one explorer on a single space, except on the starting point and the end point. So, if let's say for example the green explorer was here, and I gained let's say 2 moves with my explorer, I would do 1 step here, and I could either stop there or skip the green player and do my second move here. Again here, you immediately gain the bonus or action depicted in the space where you end your movement with your explorer. Now it's time to explain all bonuses and actions that can be found on island and ocean tracks. I will start with bonuses. Here, for example, you immediately gain a temporary knowledge token. In such spaces, you immediately receive the amount of coins depicted. Here, you receive coins and also victory points. With this here, you perform an academy action, the one we explained earlier. You gain any one seal from the board without spending any coins for it. With this action here, you gain 1 step with your marker in the evolution track.
And with this action here, you gain 2 steps.
The importance of this track will be explained a bit later.
Next we have the campsite action. These actions are always connected to an area containing tent spaces as well as actions and bonuses.
If there is an empty tent space, you can take your next tent
using tents from top to bottom
and place it on the space. If there is a coin cost, then you must be able to pay it.
After you place the tent, you gain all benefits included in the campsite.
On top of that, you also gain the benefits depicted right next to the tent you just removed from your personal board. A dashed line between effects means that the player must choose one of the 2 options. In our case, if I have just placed my 3rd tent, I can also choose to either perform an exploration with 1 move or navigation with 2 moves. Another important action you can find on these tracks are these ones in which you research the depicted specimen. When you research a specimen, you gain a research marker and place it on the corresponding specimen type on your personal board. Next, it's the gain objective action, and this one can also be triggered with a worker on the board. This time the player also gains 2 coins. With this action, the player takes any one objective tile from the board and places it in their objective reserves next to their personal display. The player's reserve area can hold up to 2 objective tiles of any color. If the player's reserves are full, then the new tile must be immediately placed in any one empty objective space. The top row spaces can hold silver objectives, while the bottom row spaces can hold golden objectives. If a player places the tile on a spot with a coin penalty, then the penalty must be paid in advance. Illustrations on the objective tiles are objectives, and these illustrations next to objective tile spaces are the benefits that the player will gain once they accomplish the objective. Objectives are pretty straightforward. I will not explain all of them, but I display them here with graphics and you can pause the video to read them. This one here, for example, requires the player to have a tent deployed in a camp on the board, and as it seems I have already placed 3 of them, and also to have 2 blue seals in one or more of my workers. So, as soon as I place another blue seal in any one of my workers, this objective is fulfilled. I will take the tile, choose any one empty objective space and place it facing downwards this time and immediately gain all the benefits next to that space. If the objective tile I fulfilled was already on the board, then I simply flip the tile and gain all benefits next to it. Objective tiles can be accomplished at any time during your turn in the action phase or at any time during the reward phase. Of course, it's possible that you accomplish the objective as soon as you take the tile. Again, all of the objective bonuses are pretty straightforward. All of them award you victory points at the end of the game, as it's indicated by this little arrow beneath the illustration. So I would gain 2 victory points here, and I also gain a permanent benefit of not having to pay any coins for acquiring new seals with the Academy action. This one is another interesting bonus. You gain your 5th worker and place it here. This worker can never have seals, but you can boost its actions by using temporary knowledge tokens. Again, I display here all the bonuses and you can pause the video to check them out. After speaking about objectives, it's a good time to talk about crew card actions. These are not objectives, but they also depict goals that, once accomplished, you immediately gain bonuses. The goal of the crew card are these seals depicted in the middle. To fulfill the goal, the set of seals depicted on the card must be applied in a row of a single worker. So, as soon as I place another green seal onto this worker row, I immediately fulfill the goal of this card and gain the benefit depicted in its bottom, which in this case is to place one of my available explorers in the starting space of an island that I have not yet discovered with my ship. Then you flip the card you have fulfilled and place this arrow right next to the worker whose seals accomplished the goal. This means that this worker's seals cannot be used to accomplish any other crew member card. This action here is correspondence, and it's also one of the basic board actions that can be triggered using one of your workers. When you perform this action, you remove stamps from your personal display. How many of them? 2, 3 or 4 with a more advanced action. So now I would remove 2 stamps. The stamps can be removed from one or multiple stacks. If you have depleted one of your stacks, then you immediately gain the bonus depicted right next to it, which in this case is to gain a seal from the board with a discount of 2 coins. This one grants Exploration 2 and this one grants Navigation 2. Then the player places all of the stamps in a single envelope area. Each envelope is connected to a tile with 2 bonuses, but these will be awarded in the reward phase. We'll talk more about them in a bit. Let's now see some more board locations. This one triggers the Deliver Specimen action. The 2 action illustrations means you can deliver up to 2 specimens, but the second one will have a penalty of 3 coins. When you deliver a specimen, you must have a research marker on your board covering a specimen of which the corresponding museum tile is still available next to the board. In this example, I have one such specimen, so I take the corresponding museum tile and place it on the corresponding space of the museum, and if that row still has a coin next to it, you immediately gain it. Each tile belongs to a column and a row in the museum. After you place the tile, you examine the column and row corresponding to your placement and take all bonuses visible in the bottom right corner of every museum space. So, with my placement, I instantly gain 3 coins from the supply and 4 moves with my evolution marker on the evolution track. Last but not least, if a placement completes a row in the museum, the player will gain a move in the evolution track as an extra bonus, as this symbol indicates.
The next action is to research a museum specimen.
Again, this action can be performed twice, the second one with a penalty of 3 coins. With this action, the player chooses any one specimen of which the tile is already placed in the museum, and then takes a research marker from the supply, placing it in the corresponding specimen space on the player's board. From special action spaces, you receive various bonuses or perform combinations or variations of the actions we just explained. With this one, for example, you can discard one of your temporary knowledge tokens to gain either 7 coins or 7 victory points.
The last action is reserve player turn order.
When you perform this action, you place your worker in the leftmost empty circle
In this area of the board.
Then, you immediately gain the coin bonus of this area here, which in 2 players game is 3 coins, otherwise it's 2. This action will affect the player turn order, we will explain it in the corresponding phase. Before moving on with the rest of the phases, I want to come back to worker distinctions. As you can see, this worker has reached the silver distinction, while that one has reached the silver but also the golden distinction.
When these workers are used in large book actions,
the player gains additional bonuses. Let's check them out. The distinction bonuses are all found in the top of book pages. When a worker with a silver distinction is used on any of these actions, that player also receives the bonus depicted in the silver distinction space. So now I would do 2 + 1, 3 moves in my navigation action. When a worker with both silver and golden distinction awarded is used on an action, the player receives both bonuses, silver and golden. So now I will gain 2 coins and 3 victory points on top of performing this action. The golden distinction of exploration and navigation awards the player with an extra stop. When moving your pawn, you can stop to another space and receive its bonuses. So if, let's say, I had an exploration of 3 with an extra stop, I could do 1, 2, make an extra stop here and gain a token and 2 victory points, and then continue 3 and gain another 3 victory points. I did 2 stops. We're moving now to the modify turn order phase. Here you simply readjust the player turn order, and I will use a 4-player example to better explain how this is done. If during the action phase any player has performed the reserve turn order action, then at this moment their turn order marker is moved to the exact same position. So the green player will become first, the yellow player will become second, and all other players will keep their relative turn order. In the reward phase, players first score correspondence majorities. Players are ranked for each one of the envelopes, and the players who are ranked first or second will gain the bonuses depicted in the corresponding tile. Again, here I've used an example with 4 players. In the first envelope, the yellow player is ranked first and moves twice in the evolution track, and the green player is ranked second and moves only once. In the second envelope, the blue and the yellow players are tied for the first rank. When players are tied, they all gain the corresponding benefit, and the next ranking is still applied to the following players. The green and the white player again tie for the second rank, and they will both gain this Exploration 1 benefit. For the third envelope, only the blue player gains the top benefit. you resolve these majorities
moving from top to bottom.
and all benefits are taken in player turn order. Finally, for each of the envelopes, if you have gained any of the two benefits, you must remove half of your stamps rounding up. So, after scoring these majorities, the situation on the board should be left like that. All removed stamps are then placed in this area. Then, players score points for the next Beagle tile. There are 5 Beagle tiles on the board, 1 for each round. So, in our example, in the reward phase of the first round, players will score 6 victory points for each research marker on a flower specimen on their board. Then the tile is removed from the game. Let's see some more tiles. With this one, players will gain 5 victory points for every lens they have deployed on the board. With that one, players will gain 3 victory points for every achieved objective, and with that one, 8 victory points for every stamp stack which is empty on their board. However, after calculating your Beagle bonus, you must apply any applicable lagging penalties depending on the position of the neutral Beagle ship on the board. Let's explain lagging penalties using an example. It is now the reward phase of the 4th round, and I, as the yellow player, have managed to score 2 objective tiles so far in the game. So, my Beagle bonus is 2 times 3, 6 points. However, the position of my ship is separated by the neutral Beagle ship by 2 of these lines. Each of these lines depict a victory point penalty that must be applied to my Beagle bonus. So 6 minus 7 is minus 1, but you can never lose more points than the Beagle points you gained. So I simply score nothing. Finally, in the cleanup phase, you prepare for the next round. At first, you move the neutral Beagle ship to the next Beagle ship space on the ocean track. Players then take back all of their workers and place them on their personal display. If there are any face-up objective tiles on the board, these are removed from the game and you place new tiles from their corresponding stacks. Then, in the seals area, if there are any seals remaining in the top row, you remove them from the game, then you slide all remaining seals upwards as much as possible. And finally, you fill the empty spaces with random new seals from the general supply. After this point, you proceed with the action phase of the next round. If, however, that was the 5th round, you skip the cleanup phase entirely and you proceed with final scoring. In scoring, players first score victory points found in their play area. First remove any objective tile which is still facing upwards. Then score all end-of-game victory points depicted next to your satisfied objective tiles. Take note that according to this illustration, if you have filled the 2 rightmost spaces with satisfied objectives, then you score another 4 victory points as a bonus. Then you score victory points for seals that are placed in the 5th and 6th column. Then you gain 1 point for every 5 remaining coins and 1 point for each remaining temporary knowledge token.
There is also a 5 victory point bonus if you have placed all of your 5 tents on the board.
Finally, players calculate their evolution track bonus. By moving their evolution marker during the game, players will gain a multiplier for the final bonus. You count the number of complete rows in the museum and then you add 2 to this count. Then you multiply this sum to the multiplier you acquired. So in this example, it's 2 plus 2, 4 times 10, 40 victory points for the yellow player. For the green player, it's 9 times 4, 36 points. If you ever reach the end of the scoring track, use your remaining cube on the first space of this track and start over from the beginning. Then each other time you reach the end of the scoring track, you move this cube 1 space to the right and again you start over. The player with the most victory points wins the game. If there is a tie, then the tied player who advanced further in the evolution track wins the tie. If there is still a tie, then coins will determine the winner. And after that, all tied players will share their victory. And that were the rules of Darwin's Journey. We're looking forward to this one coming. If you like our videos and want to see more, please subscribe to our channel, and until next time, have fun and play more board games.